everyone, welcome back to Chinese. This is our third Chinese video, and in the last video we were halfway done to our vowels. We did A, E, and I. So in this video we will finish up our vowel sounds by going through O and U, and then also, because Chinese doesn't have too many rules regarding consonants, we'll go ahead and look at the consonant rules in this video as well. And in the next video we will go back to our 10 sample words and review those and finish up Chinese. So without further ado, in this video, let's jump right into our vowels. So we left off at I, so let's jump right into O. Okay, so we're going to do O first. O, and the first vowel sound, actually the only vowel sound we're going to look at for O is our long O sound, and that's because the other O sounds are actually not really in Chinese. I mean, the O with one dot is pronounced aw. It's very similar to the A with two dots, and we already took a look at that. So we're just going to look at our long O sound right here, which is pronounced O. It's like O saying its own name. And in many languages, we've seen that this sound is fairly simple. It's usually just spelled with the letter O. However, in Chinese, there are actually many different ways to spell this sound. So it's a little bit tricky, but we'll go through and look at all the spellings. First of all, there are many different ways, and it's not like one is actually like better than the other one. But they are applicable in different areas, so we'll look at that. First of all, if it's in the middle, it's usually going to be just an O. Usually no other combination. In the middle, it's usually just a plain, simple O. However, at the end, there are pretty much 3 different ways you could go with this spelling. You could have just an O, which is actually not that common, but you have OE. Okay, OE. You have OU for the O sound, and you also have OH. And while these are the 3 main ways to spell them, each one isn't very common. Chinese, actually, a lot of words don't end in the O sound. In Japanese, they do. In Chinese, not so much. But if they do, these are the 3 options with which to spell this O sound. So let's look at some examples. First of all, in the middle with an O, we have the word Honan. I'll put this up here, Honan, H-O-N-A-N, and we see it right there, Honan. And this is a kind of silk from China. Remember, China is really big on silk, so this is a good reflection of that, Honan. And that's very simple, it's in the middle, so we're going to spell it just with an O, nothing fancy there. Now let's look at the end. With O-E, one word we have is Pico, P-E-K-O-E. We have our O-E there for the O sound. And Pico is basically a kind of tea. There are a lot of words for tea in Chinese, and this is one of them. With O-U, we have show, S-H-O-U, and it looks like that should be pronounced shoe, but it is pronounced show. It's actually it's a character, a Chinese character, and that's where the O-U comes in for the O sound. Again, it doesn't look very conventional, but pretty typical word in Chinese. And the one with OH, one example is Yulo, Y-U-L-O-H. And Yulo is basically a kind of oar, like a boating oar for boats. Again, we have our OH, and all these 3 words, because the O sound ends the word, these different spellings come into play, O-E, O-U, and O-H. But pretty much, that's not very common. Usually the O sound is going to be in the middle of the word, and in that case, you should spell it with just an O. So don't complicate it too much. Alright, so that actually was all we had for O. Go ahead and erase this, and we're going to jump right into U. Again, there's only one sound we're going to look at U, because the other ones are not common in Chinese, not really applicable for Chinese. So the one we're going to look at is the U with 2 dots. Remember, the U with 1 dot is pronounced as in book, and that sound doesn't show up in Chinese a whole bunch. So we're just going to look at the U with 2 dots. Okay, so we have our U with 2 dots, and remember, this is pronounced oo, as in food, okay? As in food. And the rule for this is actually very simple. It's always going to be spelled U except for one word, and we'll look at that, of course. So always, very simple, always you, except for, there's only one word that this doesn't work for, and you've probably heard of this word, oolong. O-O-L-O-N-G, oolong. Here we have a double O instead of a U. Oolong is a kind of tea. Again, we have a T word, but other than that, all Chinese words use a U for the oo sound. Again, very, very simple. Okay, so that's that. And now we're going to look at the schwa, which thankfully for us is really easy in Chinese. First of all, it's not that common. So just to refresh your memory, the schwa is our upside down E, and it's pronounced and usually in other languages, remember, it can be spelled with an A, E, I, O, or U. I mentioned that in many Asian languages, it is spelled with an A, such as in Sanskrit and Japanese and Hindi. But in Chinese, first of all, the sound is very rare. We don't run into it often. But if we do, we're going to spell it with the letter U, which is actually, the only real way to spell this. And there's really only a couple words that have this. One example is subgum, S-U-B-G-U-M, subgum. We have it twice there, actually. Subgum, and this is actually like a Chinese dish. It's really like a mixture of vegetables. It's got like peppers and mushrooms. So again, Chinese dishes are actually good words. There are lots of words that describe Chinese foods, and this is one of them. And it's a perfect example of our schwa sound in Chinese, which is spelled with a U. Okay, so that concludes our segment on vowels. And now we're going to jump right into the consonants. If you remember in the previous videos, I mentioned that the consonants actually don't vary much from English because Chinese has been Romanized, the Pinyin language, so it's pretty standard. So let me put that up there just as a reminder. It's pretty standard. The consonants are very much similar to English. Okay, so we're going to just say similar to English. And this goes for, about 99% of the consonants. But there are some special sort of standout sounds that are very specifically Chinese, and we'll definitely look at that. Let's look at one on this page. First one is the sound duh, the D sound, okay? D right there, pronounced duh. Conventionally, it should be spelled with just a letter D, right? So, and that's the same for Chinese. In the middle of the word, usually it should be spelled, or it is spelled, with the letter D. However, before the pinyin system, actually, there was another system with which Chinese was Romanized, and in that system, it's really old now, they translated the duh sound into a T for Chinese. So, and that some of that remains to this day. So what we have is, in the beginning of words, and if this doesn't make sense, then just wait a little bit. We'll see with some examples pretty soon. At the beginning of the word, the D sound can be spelled with the letter T in Chinese. Okay, so now let's look at some examples. And again, this is due to the old system of Romanizing Chinese. Example with a D in the middle is Pidon. Remember the duck eggs we talked about? Pidon. See, very simple, D. But some examples with T at the beginning is Dujun. The word is Dujun, but it's spelled T-U-C-H-U-N. Another word, Dao, is T-I-A-O. It's pronounced Dao, but it starts with a T, as does Dujun. And see, that's how, that's a little quirky thing of Chinese. Dujun is basically a Chinese military governor, and Dao is, I think, like a Chinese currency or cash, type of Chinese cash. But again, both of these words have that special quirk that T is, can represent the D sound in Chinese, okay? Especially at the beginning of the word. If it's in the middle, spell it like a D, but if, spell it with a D. But if it's at the beginning, then you might have to think twice. Usually it's going to be a T because it has been translated with that old system. Okay, so that is our just one little thing to look at, that special D sound. And this old system of Romanizing Chinese has actually caused all this. And there's one more example. Actually, there's probably two more examples of such little quirks in Chinese because of this old translation method. So the second one we're going to look at, it is our SH sound. Sh. It's pronounced sh, right? And of course, in the middle, conventionally, we're going to spell it with an SH, right? Very simple way to spell it, okay? Conventional. This is the conventional way to spell it with an SH. Pretty simple. But because of that old system of translating, we have another way to spell it, which occurs at the beginning of words. Okay, at beginning. And you guys can try to guess what it is. It's actually pretty non-conventional. It's actually HS. It's the reverse of SH. That's how lots of Chinese words start with an HS, and it's pronounced sh. And this is actually very interesting. Let's go look at some examples. First of all, one with the middle, I think we already saw a word in a previous video, Wongshi. W-O-N-G-S-H-Y. It's a kind of tree. See, it's right in the middle, so we have S-H. But with H-S, there is a word called shin. It is a homonym for our, the English word shin, like the body part on your leg. But this one is H-S-I-N, shin. Of course, it doesn't look like it should be pronounced shin. It looks like hasim, but it's pronounced shin, and it actually means faithfulness and truthfulness, especially in Confucianism, which there are a lot of Chinese words relating to Confucianism, of course, because Confucius was Chinese. Another word is Xia, H-S-I-A, and this is actually a Chinese dynasty, or people of that dynasty. So we see that H-S looks kind of misplaced or reversed, but it's actually quite a common thing for Chinese words. So definitely, if you hear the sh at the beginning of a Chinese word, you would have to think about HS, because that's how it was translated in the old system, and that's how these words remain today. But if it's in the middle, be comfortable with the SH, the normal way to spell it. Okay? So that's the second little quirky thing of Chinese, and now we'll go on to the third and final little quirk that we're going to take a look at. Remember, other than these three little kind of nuances, everything else is pretty much the same. So this sound is the J sound, J. And we know this sound can be spelled many ways in different languages. Some languages spell it with a J, some spell it with a G, some spell it with both. In Chinese, this is very interesting, it's spelled with a CH. A CH. And again, this is part of that old system that we have. It is a little bizarre, but it's actually pretty standard in Chinese. So without talking about it too much, let's look at some examples. One word is Zhoukoutian. So it's pronounced Zhoukoutian. It starts with a J sound, but it's spelled C-H-O-U, K-O-U-T-I-E-N. And see, we have that CH for that J at the beginning. One thing I want to look at, just to double check the pronunciation of this word. Let me type it. Ooh. Alright, so it's pronounced Zhoukoutian. Remember, in this video, previously, we said the O sound is spelled many ways. Remember, it's in the middle, it's spelled with an O, but if it's at the end of the word, it can be spelled O-E or O-U or O-H. Here, you're probably wondering, hey, but that's in the middle of the word. Why is it spelled O-U? It is in the middle, of course, but the reason it's spelled O-U is, first of all, you can see it's from a town in China, but it's kind of like a compound word, and they are sort of separate pieces. So Zhou is like a separate piece, and that's why we have OU to end that. And then Ko is another piece. That's why we have the OU to end that. So it kind of is like the end of the word, even though altogether it is in the middle, just in case you're wondering about that. But it is pronounced Zhoukoutian, as you see, and that's why our CH represents the J sound there. Okay, and what that means is actually, you probably saw it, I got rid of it, but it's a culture signified by chopper tools in China. So there was this culture, a Chinese culture, but it was very much signified by tools that were made for chopping. So that's Zhoukoutian. Another example is Jing. Jing, you can probably guess the spelling of this now. It's C-H-I-N-G. we have our ch for the j sound, and it's an authoritative book or canonical type of book in Chinese. And of course, we're not going to pronounce it ching, we're going to pronounce it jing, because our j in the beginning of Chinese words has a ch. And that's actually one important thing to note, that this happens in the beginning of words. All these three little quirks that we saw, the d and the d sound with the t, the sh sound with the sh or hs at the beginning, and the j sound with the ch, they all happen at the beginning. So that's one important thing to remember. And then Jing is, like I said, a kind of authoritative book in Chinese. So these are the three sort of, like I said, quirky parts of Chinese. And other than these three sounds, everything else is pretty much standard. Like the b sound is spelled b, the n sound is spelled n, very standard. The k sound is spelled with a k. We don't really have many, actually C is not used for the k sound, but again, that sound is not very common in Chinese either. So Chinese words, all in all, are not very hard. If you know your vowel rules and these little consonant pieces, then it should be easy to figure out Chinese words. And the good thing about Chinese words are that they're easy to memorize. So if you're ever stuck, it's probably best to memorize those and save it for later. Okay, so these are all the Chinese rules I'd like to cover, and in the next video we'll go back to our 10 sample words and apply these rules to those words. See you then!